Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Roberto Monaco here with Influencology and the Car Speaking Company. And today I have my brother, my Canadian, French, American brother, Dr. Jean-Guy. Dr. Jean-Guy, what's up, my brother?
Good morning, good afternoon, good, wherever you're at in the world. Just here we go. Here we are. We're ready
Here
to
we
go.
are. Dr. Jean-Guy and I go back many years. One of my favorite people. It's my brother, literally, it's my brother. We met chiropractic events. Then he came to our influencer from the front class, become buddies. We did some work together. And through my journey, I had a chance to coach a lot of people. And some do better than others. But as a coach per se, one thing that excites me is to see people taking communication, speaking as seriously as I do. And this guy actually takes him, I think, even more seriously than I do. And the level of preparation, of rehearsal, of intensity on his message to serve his community was so inspiring. And to give an example, pre-COVID era, and he can talk about that too. Pre-COVID era, he was doing this dinner with the doctors for 3 years. And I remember getting your text in 3 years. He never been below 80% conversion ratio, which is incredible. I haven't seen anybody doing that, doing these dinners. And I also knew when I talked to your beautiful wife, Dr. Denise, and she always talk about how much you prepare. And I remember you mentioned to me that you had block in your calendar, I think it was Thursday morning or Tuesday morning, train the opening, train the pre-frame. And dude, you're so inspiring, brother. Dr. Jean-Guy gave a phenomenal, not good, an outstanding talk for our mastermind. People are still talking today about your talk, by the way, brother. So welcome, my brother. I'm so grateful to have you here today.
Hey, Roberto, thank you for having me. I'm really happy and I'm honored, to be here this morning with you. And what I want to share with you is with the people that are watching right now is to just, I was originally born in Montreal, and obviously my first language is French, right? So when I came to this country, I couldn't speak English, obviously. Matter of fact, there's times right now I still think that I can't speak English.
I can relate to that.
But that's okay, right? It's just the idea that when you decide to master, something that it requires, you have to be committed. And that's kind of just, what I decided to do a long time ago with everything that I do is to just be committed and to just know that there's only one way, and we just got to move forward. And to be able to communicate, just to go back to what you said about the dinner with the doc, which is true, right? With this conversion, which was truly amazing to be able to do what I've learned from you and apply it, and to be able to start changing those people's lives to a higher level. And not only, just like you would say, not only to inform people, but to transform them, to allow them not only to hear something good, but then to take action and not to be afraid of, giving them an offer, giving them an opportunity, to see it as an opportunity for them to make a difference in their own life, right? And once you start seeing this, you just realize that, how important that is. And not only that we've done that for many years, but even when, right in the middle of COVID, when I started back in June, I started to do dinner with the doc again, right? I mean, I didn't care if we had 10 people there or 15 people there or 30 or 50, it doesn't make any difference. It's like whoever is there, this is where our focus needs to be on, because all of those people, not only for themselves, but they also have lives, they also have people, they have friends, right? That we have an opportunity to be able to touch them and to change their life. So I take what I do very seriously, and sometimes, I might be guilty of maybe being a little bit too serious and intense, but once people hear the story, right, they have a better understanding of where I'm coming from and why this is so important to me. And I think that, there's strategy that all of us can apply in our life into what we do, and to be able to speak and to be able to build rapport and to be able to influence. This is like a science, just like anything else. And for most of my life, I've been flying by the seat of my pants, so to speak, in terms of trying to communicate with people. And believe me, I've made all the mistakes, right? But I knew in my heart that there's only one way, and we have to go forward, right? So I'm super, I'm thrilled to be here, with you this morning and to share, some of what I've been through with you and in my 20-year career in chiropractic, and what led me to be here today, and to be able to do what I do, and to do it, having peace in my heart, and then having joy to do it every day, and to just know that I'm doing the right thing.
So why, one thing that comes clear to the people who are watching us right now is that you're super passionate and intense about health and about bringing health to your community. Dr. João Gui practices in Michigan, I believe in Lansing. Where does the passion, the fire comes from?
Well, the passion, the passion comes from, it comes originally from my own personal story with my father, which many of you have heard already, but if you haven't heard it, I'm just going to give you the short version.
Most people have not in Facebook here. Okay. They haven't heard it, so I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, I was born and raised on the farm in Montreal, Canada, which is a small community, about 2,000 people there. And my mom, my dad, they married at a young age. My mother was 17 years old. My father was 22 at the time. And when they married, my dad never told my mother that he had problem with his blood sugar. And shortly after they married, what happened is my mother found my dad on the ground. She thought he was dead. And as a result of that, she rushed him to the hospital. And by the time they got to the hospital, my father was in a coma. He was in a diabetic coma. My mom did not know anything about it. And by the time they found out, right, 48 hours later, a couple of days later, my father, by God's grace, came out of the hospital, and they told him that from this point on, he would have to give himself a shot of insulin for the rest of his life. And every morning at 6 a.m. he would do that. And then in the afternoon, when his blood sugar would start dropping down, he would start eating cake, cookies, candies, and ice cream. Did that every day, right? Which was not probably the best thing to do, but that's what he did. My father was also a smoker. He smoked 100 cigarettes a day, and which is, if you've never smoked, it's 4 packs a day. And he would start first thing in the morning, 6 a.m., and had a cigarette in his mouth until he hit the pillow at night. I mean, did that every single day until he was 30 years old. And when he turned to be 30 years old, he developed this condition called peripheral neuropathy. And, from his knees down, he could not feel his legs whatsoever. You could literally just take a knife and just jab him in his legs, and he would bleed, but he did not even know what was happening to him. So as a result of that, within a short period of time, 5 years, he also lost his sight. By the time he was 35 years old, he was 3/4 blind. And then I remember him coming into the room, right, at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, which is the dream of every farmer, if you know anything about farming, right? And he would say, "Son, it's time to get up." And I would be like, "What for?" At 4 or 5 years old at the time. And he's like, "Well, you're going to be driving the tractor, and I'm going to tell you where to go," because he could not see at that time, right? So I would jump on the tractor, he'd tell me where to go. And within 1 year, my father was completely blind. And, it was pretty sad to see this whole story unveil itself. And then, he lost 40 pounds really quickly. And then he was confined to the house. And then he spent a lot of time in bed because he was kind of depressed. He couldn't work anymore. And because he spent so much time in bed, he started to develop bed sores. And then when it first started, the bed sores was about the size of a quarter. And then within a period of time, about 6 months, the quarter was like, this big around. You could literally see every single layer of the flesh all the way down to the bone. And I remember as a little boy, right, that the doctor would come in once a week with his little black bag, and he would go right into the bedroom, and he would clean that up with some ointment and, put a piece of tape back on until the next visit. Did that every day, right? My father turned to be 40 years old. This was July 12, 1982. And at the age of 40, as you guys can imagine, right, he was not doing so well because he spent about 20 hours a day in bed, and then he would come into the living room. Either my older sister or my mom would spoon feed him because he couldn't take care of himself, right? So just imagine, there's 5 of us. None of us are teenagers, right? I was the oldest boy. I was 8 years old at the time. My brother was 7. My other brother was 6. My sister was 11. My older sister was 12 years old, and my mom just had turned 35 years old at the time. So, he's 40 years old and he's in bed all day. And then just within a few months, one day in September, my mom did not know what to do with him. So she called the ambulance. And when the ambulance came in, the 2 paramedic comes in, they roll in with a stretcher, they go right into the bedroom. And by the time they got there, right, they looked at my mother. They're like, we need to take him in. And my mom said, "Hey, you know what? Whatever you need to do, just do it." And they load him up on the stretcher, and then they roll him back out of the house, of his room, and they roll right in front of us. And as he's, coming in front of us, I looked at my mother and I said, "Hey, where are they taking Dad?" And then I just heard crickets. And then I asked again, I said, where are they taking him? And then I quickly realized as a young man that, being a good provider was not the most important thing in life, right? So when people were asking me, or when you're asking me today, where does that start? I realized early in my life that, you could be a good provider, but if you don't have your health, you can't provide. Sometimes people say to me, well, I want to make a lot of money. I'm like, well, that's great. But if you don't have your health, you can't do that. Sometimes people say, well, Dr. Jean-Guy, I love to work. I'm like, well, that's great. I love to work too. But if you don't have your health, you can't do that. Well, Dr. Jean-Guy, what's most important to me is my family. I'm like, well, that's great. But if you don't have your health, you can't do that. Right? So that became, the linchpin for me at that moment in time in my life, that everything was the foundation on what I had seen when I was a little boy. And then having the fire within me to just say, hey, from this point on in my life, this story here has power, right? Not because I want people to feel bad for me, because my father's story, right, he was my greatest blessing. When he left that day on the stretcher and my mom did not answer, right, what happened is, my dad on his way to the hospital, he had a heart attack. And I never saw my dad again, right? And I always tell people that, this made an impression on me. And obviously this has carried, my entire life up to this point right now today, being in front of you today, and to say, hey, what am I here for? Right? So anybody that will look at me and say, hey, that's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal, right? If you don't have your health, can you hang out with your grandkids? If you don't have your health, can you go to work in the morning? Right? So that became the fire within me to just having this understanding. And then on top of that, right, to hear years later when I asked my mom, I said, tell me what happened that day. Right? This was September 14, 1982. She says, your dad knew he would die, but he didn't want to die in front of you kids. Right? So
I have a goosebump.
all of those things, right? That was just the linchpin that started this whole thing, to have an understanding of, how precious life is. And when people say, hey, just like you guys as patient, maybe out there that you're watching, people would say to you, hey, I'm going to die anyway. And I'm like, you're right. We all going to die, right? There's only two things that we're for sure in life is we're going to die and pay taxes, right? However, just think about this here for a minute, right? Would you like to be the best that you can be until you get to that day, whether it's 55, 65, or 75, or 90, right? Or you would like to be miserable the remaining 15 years of your life and you're in a nursing home drooling all over yourself and you don't know who's in front of you, right? Which one would you like to have, right? So people have to make their choices. And if we're not telling them, right, they just people are numb, right? People are numb. They get to a point, they don't even know, right? If you drink 12 cans of pop a day, if you were to have 15 of them, then you don't know the difference, because bad is bad. They don't know what better is. So, that's our responsibility. That's my responsibility to wake those people up and say, hey, listen, this doesn't have to be, right? You can make a different choices. So here you have it.
This is so powerful, man. I heard this story, I don't know, 20 times, and every single time I still get goosebumps, and especially the addition that you, the part that you, when you talk to your mom. One of the things that I admire about you is congruency. For me, I have congruency at one of my highest values, especially in coaching industry or training industry, speaking industry. Anybody, quote unquote, can become a coach or a speaker. I mean, literally, you put a profile, boom, what do you do? I'm a coach. You know what I mean? So, and I've been doing this since 2002. So for me, walk the talk. I just coach and help people in the areas that I'm congruent, that I know that I've been there, and I don't deal with other things. And what I love about you is your congruency. So talk about what are some of the regiments that, or talk about congruency in the chiropractic profession a little bit.
Well, congruency to me is, whatever you tell a person, whatever you're advocating, right, behind the scene, this is what you should, none of us are perfect, but we should try to be doing that, behind the scene when nobody's watching, And one time, a long time ago, right, there's some famous people in the world of chiropractic, and I'm not sure exactly where, I heard this, but, this doctor from, said something that, kind of got stuck with me. It says the level of congruency that you have in your life will equate the amount of destruction that you have, right? So the more congruent you are, the better you'll be able to propel yourself forward because of the congruency that you have. So for instance, if on my building it says Dr. Jean-Guy, let's say for instance, Russell Daigneault family chiropractic, right? But yet every person that I take care of, they're all pain people, and when their pain is done, people just go home. Then this is not like congruent, right? If you have Russell Daigneault Pain Center, but yet you want to see family, those are two different things that, they don't match together. So from the beginning to the end in our own life, all the way out into the professional life, then to be able to question for every one of us to say, am I congruent with the message I'm trying to give to people, right? So if you're telling people that you're into health and wellness, then what does that really mean, right? So for me, it's like, okay, every morning, you get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, and then you read a good book, and then you want to make sure that you're just pouring into yourself, and you want to make sure that, you do the things that needs to be done to build yourself up. And then after that, you need to train your body. And then after that, you need to take care of your body by putting real food in your body. So you need to train, you need to eat well, you need to think well, right? I mean, Dr. Chestnut talks about this. That's probably one of the, chiropractor into a profession that, he advocates, you got to think well, move well, eat well. And I'm all in, like, you got to be in line with that. You got to be congruent, because when you're in front of the patient, right, that's the same thing. Is we want to just say, hey, you know what, this is what we do. That's what we advocate. That's what we want to do behind the scene. You don't have to be perfect, but we just want to understanding that training the you part is really important. And what I see in chiropractic or people in general is, people go back to their default mode. So what that means is when you have too many choices, when it gets hard, you just go back to the default. And we've seen that right now with COVID.
Okay, let's talk about that. This is great. So that was the topic that we put the title of the video here. So what is the default mode for most chiros, especially in this COVID era? What is the default mode?
Well, it's for people to self-sabotage themselves. When you don't train up for the war, and we know that this is going to be a war. It's a war for all of us out there every day. You're just out there in the trenches. And it's going to get tough, right? It's going to get tough. So what that means is, patient might, they might call you and they might complain, or, something might happen in your life. Whatever that means, we all, you're running a business, you have a family, you have children, all those things, life is coming at you every day. So if you don't train up, it's going to be difficult to make it through the storm every single day. And then it's much easier to just go back to your default. Right. So in chiropractic, it could be like, hey, I want to have a family practice, take care of kids, not just taking care of people that have pain. Hey, don't get me wrong. I like to take care of people that have pain, but I like to take care of people above and beyond their pain for the rest of their life. That's what I'd like to do. But is it easier to convince people to just take care of them when they're in pain? Yeah, because there is no convincing. When a person is in pain, they'll do whatever to get out of pain, then they're out the door. So then what that means is, are you going to go back to your default mode to have a pain practice? And don't get me wrong, if you choose to have that, that's okay, as long as you're happy with it, right? But if you say, I want to have this kind of practice, and then when it gets tough, then you just turn around and you go back to something that is easy, whatever the insurance is going to pay, or, whatever the patient's going to decide to do. So going back to your default mode has to do with the you part, with you. So that's the reason why we need to train up. Because when you train up and you know what you stand for every single day, right? This is what we're going to be communicating to people, and we're going to do whatever needs to be done. Just like when I came into this country and I couldn't speak the language, and I'm hearing you every single day, you're like, hey, there's still like, probably 10 words out of 50 that comes out of my mouth that they're wrong, but I say it anyway because I know that people need to hear it. Well, this is how I feel now, right? Because I really don't care. People are like, well, you didn't say this right. I'm like, well, that's great. What did I say right? Right? At the end of the day, I just want to move people in the right direction, and I don't really care anymore, and it doesn't matter, right? Thanks to you for that in parts, because when it's all said and done, it's about changing people's lives. So don't go back to your default mode, and the default mode could be default in practice, but again, it has a lot to do with the you part, which is the training that you're putting yourself through every single day. People are like, well, why do you train? Well, you train because you want to be tougher.
Can you give me some examples on how you personally train every day? What do you do? What are some of the trainings that you do personally? Could it be spiritually or health wise or mentally? What kind of trainings that you do? You can share here.
Well, I mean, for me, every morning, what I do when I get up is I just read the scripture. That's usually what I do every day, right? And I'll do that for about an hour, and then I have one or two books that I will read also in conjunction with, and then I will work out 5 days a week, usually on Wednesday and Monday. Those are my long days, so those are the 2 days that I will rest, and all the other days I'll be training at least an hour, every one of those days, and I will do anything from some CrossFit version or functional movement version of training. So, and this has been like my entire life, right? And then after that, I'm on a nutrition program, right? And then trying to eat as healthy as I can. I mean, we have a little farm right at our home. We just had a baby cow this weekend.
That's
we have chickens and ponies and horses, and to have a healthy living the best we can. Living on the farm, for me, it takes me back to my roots when I grew up on a farm, right? And then to be able to be consistent, to do that on a day-to-day basis, 365 days a year, right? I mean, it's easy to do one day, it's easy to do 1 week, but to have a ritual, to be able to do that day in and day out, and then to be organized, because when you get yourself organized, you create freedom, right? And to know that even if you don't feel like it, this is just part of training, because when it gets tough, that's what's going to get you through, right? So for me, the spiritual training, the physical training, the soul training for me is, it's clinical excellence. So what that means is, this thing about rehearsing the dinner with the doc, or rehearsing the whatever, we work together, this is part of soul training. It's clinical excellence. And that is important to me, because I think that the patient deserves the best you, right? Whatever you choose to do. And this is what my message, that I want for you out there today is like, hey, you need to be prepared, right? You need to be prepared in all areas of your life, because what happened is when it gets tough, it's been tough for the COVID people right now, for everybody, for the past 5-6 months. How do you want to show up for your patient right now when they're thinking about committing suicide, when they're verbally abused or sexually abused, or they have issues with addiction? How do you want to show up for them? What do you want to bring to them, right? For me, is I want to bring them peace. I want to bring them confidence. I want them to know that they were designed to heal. They were designed to be healthy. And I want them to see that, right? So people come in, they're like, I wish I could just stay here in the office all day. I'm like, well, that's great. Beautiful. You can be here if you want to. They're like, this lady came in yesterday. She's 71 years old or something. And she says, this office is so friendly. This office is like, it makes me feel at peace. I'm like, well, you can just be here for a few hours if you choose to, right? So when people say it, then that there's something that we do that is right. And that is the bottom line here that I want to communicate the message to you is, don't go back to something else because it's easy. It's easy to sleep in the morning. It's easy to eat junk all day long. It's easy to watch TV late. It's easy to lose your discipline. But you know what? When it gets tough, it's also easy to quit. And guess what? We need you. We need all of you out there, right? You people need to know that they've been called to do something. And I know that I've been called to do what I do. So I take that seriously, right? And that's important to me, to be able to continue to do what I do, to be able to help those people, because I know what I've been called to, and there's no looking back, right? A few weeks ago, I talked to you about, doing an IFF, and you're like, hey, I'd love to have 50 people, but if there's 5, I'll show up and I'll do whatever needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And that's the same thing for me. There's 1 person in a doctor's report, I'll do it. There's 100 people, I'll do it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do whatever it takes every single day, and I'm going to show up for that person that is in front of me, because it's life and death.
I love that. And I know you have in your practice, you are a CBP instructor as well, correct? You travel to Canada and you teach technique.
Yep. I have, there's a class, there's only two universities in Canada that are teaching chiropractic. There's one at the University of Toronto. They have a chiropractic school, and one at the University of Three Rivers in Quebec. So every year I will go there 2 weeks in a row to teach a class within a class. And, so we've been practicing CBP, chiropractic biophysics, in our office for all those years. And, we do different things. That we have multiple doctors, and we have a great team. And my wife is also a chiropractor. For most people don't know that, but I married into a family of 28 chiropractors. My second oldest daughter is a chiropractor, and my two youngest kids right now, they claim that they want to be chiropractors. So
That's amazing. That's so amazing. And you also incorporate the science of nutrition to help your patients to heal and to lose weight.
Yeah.
Why have you done? Because I know this is a question I have. I'm curious. Why did you do that?
Well, I'm a little bit zealous I first started, doing what I do, but I believe in health and wellness. So health and wellness is all those parts. They all play a role. Of course, you can't do all of those, but my first degree was in nutrition, right? And I've always wanted to apply to be able to apply clinical nutrition, specifically to people in the office, and how can we lead them on this path to better health, right? When people are on the SAD diet, it stands for the Standard American Diet in literature, that's what you're going to read, right? The Standard American Diet, this is just like, it's a recipe for disaster. That's the reason why we're here now, that 75% of the country is overweight and over 35% is obese, and people are dying right and left. Part of what's going on right now is our lifestyle. What we say and what we do is different. And then people try to tell you that, we've been eating less fat than ever before for the past 50 years, but yet we're fatter than we've ever been. So how's that working out? Right? Obviously not so good. So people need to know the truth. And, you don't have to be everything to everybody, but at least we should have a way that we can direct people, right, for them to be enlightened. I grew up on the farm. My first studies were in kinesiology, which I was studying to be a personal trainer. And then I got a nutrition degree, and then I got my chiropractic degree, and then I started a master's degree. And then my wife says, well, you need to go to work at some point, so you need to quit that, right? So she's like, we're done with this studying stuff. You need to get in practice. And we did, right? This was back in 1999. But, I have this background of the farming from where I come from, right? All the way through, all those different areas. So, for me, it's real close to me, and it's natural, right? And I certainly want people to know about it. And we have ways, right, through be able to speak at the office, to have events, to communicate this to people, and to try to do this efficiently, right, to a higher level in front of hundreds of people on a monthly basis, right, through virtual presentation, through face-to-face, whatever needs to be done. Right. And again, thanks to you, because, to be able to do what you do for the chiropractors out there, which is truly amazing. And again, you haven't paid me to say this, but, if you're not in yet, you need to be in with this man. Right. It's just like, it's a no-brainer. We have an opportunity. You have one person, and you can have multiple people in front of you, and you can have, you can build rapport with people. You can build relationship. And then you can take the person where they're at, and you can bring them on this journey to be able to influence them, to be able to change the way they think, right? And for them to make better decisions for themselves. Self-persuasion is the best persuasion. Dr. Fred says that about, all the time. Self-persuasion is the best persuasion. When people start understanding why, health is important, for them to be healthy is important, then they start making better decisions for themselves.
Love that. So I think I'm getting it. It's too much power. What is the future of chiropractic, or where chiropractic fits in this chaos, pandemic ordeal we experience right now? What is the role, in your perspective, the role of chiropractor?
I mean, every speaker that you've had, every person you put out there, everybody understand that chiropractic is at the forefront, right, of all of this, because once you understand that your body was designed to heal, your body is just amazing. You got to remove the interference to allow the body to function better. Having a chiropractic lifestyle, understanding the basis behind it. Chiropractic is at the forefront. I mean, we have something that nobody else has, right? We don't have to argue with going to the medical doctor and take a pill for your blood pressure. We don't have to argue with that, right? I mean, if the house is on fire, you do anything that needs to be done so you can stay alive. But if you want to be healthy, right, you got to use a different paradigm of health. Matter of fact, at the dinner with the doc, this is what I teach people. I'm like, here's a different way of thinking. Here's the different paradigms of health. And once you understand that, then you got to understand that chiropractic has to be at the forefront. It's like it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes an understanding of like why that your body was designed to heal, right? And once you start having an understanding of that, then it's just like a no-brainer for the rest of your life. You're like, I just want to be healthy. It's not removing anything from the doctor down the road that is giving his pill for blood pressure. People have a choice to do whatever they want. If they want to kill themselves and they want to kill themselves softly while they're feeling good, they're taking their pills, they can do that, right? And you and I know, and all the people that are watching right now, we know that there's a time and place to go to the doctor, right? However, if you want to be healthy, then you have to make different decisions. You have to make different choices. Now, people need to know those different choices, what those are, right? And again, right, this is our responsibility being, if you're a chiropractor, that's your responsibility to be able to disseminate this information to people and then to lead them on this path where they understand and they can make better decisions for themselves, right? So I see chiropractic as completely being at the forefront, and chiropractors that are tough, right? That are warriors, that understand their place in the marketplace right now in this country and everywhere in the world, right? To just say that what we have, nobody else has that. What we have to offer, nobody else has that, right? So we don't have to feel sorry. We don't have to feel bad. We have something that nobody else has, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that do a lot of things out there, but removing subluxation, there's only us that do that. There's only us that know how to do that, right? So we have to be able to educate people about, I'm like, I always tell, and you got to adjust the person's mind before you can adjust their spine. And that's why communicating to people is important, right? And we have to learn to do this to higher level, right? So we can set ourselves apart above and beyond saying, hey, your pain's going to go away, but there's more for you. There's more for you, Roberto, and there's more for you for your family. People have choice. They can make choices. But, that would be, to me, that would be not the right thing to do, at least if I don't give them an opportunity to make a different choice, right? But the only way we can do that is by communicating to them, being better communicator, and having ways to be able to bring people together and to communicate to a higher level, right? So we can change their life. We can change the way those people think. But first and foremost, I know that we're running out of time, but first and foremost,
this is good.
First and foremost, what I want you to know is, every one of us out there, and if you're watching this and you're a leader into this profession, or if you're a leader in your business, wherever you're at, is you have to change you first. Before you can change the world outside of you, you got to change the world inside, right? So if the world inside doesn't change, the world outside is never going to change. Every morning, you're going to get up, you're going to complain of everything that is bad in the world. You're going to watch the news like everybody else is doing, right? And you're going to find a way to fail and sabotage yourself, and then to look back and go back into your default mode, right? The default mode could be like, I don't need to work out. I don't need to eat well. I don't need to train. I can just take care of people that have pain because the insurance paid for it. I mean, whatever that is for you. You have to change your mind, right? Your mindset's got to be different. You got to train up because you got to be ready. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for you out there, and it doesn't matter where you're at, right? So I want you to be able to understand that, because this is so important. You cannot, just to repeat myself one more time, because I can't tell you how important that is, and you should write this down if you're not going to remember, is you have to change the world inside of you before you can change the world outside of you, right? That's the most important thing that you can do, because once you change the world on the inside, then all your action that you're going to be taking is going to be geared towards that, and people can see that. People can see that you're for real, right? And they can choose to follow, or they can choose to make another decision. It doesn't make any difference to me, I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm just going to do whatever needs to be done every single day. And at the end of the day, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to be at peace. Say, hey, I did what I had to do today. Right. And this is what, I love about what, who I became, and what I do into this profession, right, is to be able to give back to people, to give back to other chiropractors, to give back to patients, to give back to people around me, to understand that you got to have peace and you got to have joy into doing what you do every day, because there's nothing that is more important than that.
I love it, brother. Tony, I heard Dr. Jean-Guy speak in person, very potent, positive force for the profession. Yes, it is. Tony, thanks so much for joining us. Dean Peters, Roberto speaks about you all the time. Nice to place the name, the face amigo, Dr. Jean-Guy, man. Brother, thanks so much for just being a friend for us, man. Someone I can count on. So grateful to call you my friend. Thanks so much for the inspiration. Can't wait to hear your tailgate session. Dr. Jean-Guy is going to be do a private presentation for the participants of our upcoming Influencing from the Front for the Visual Presenter. Basically is how to get your message, but instead of doing traditional talks, we're going to focus on webinars, videos, live videos, one-on-one videos. It's going to be amazing. 3 days. You don't have to travel. It's going to be awesome. There's information below. Dr. Jean-Guy, I include your website here. If anybody wants to reach out to you, other chiros or patients, what is the best way to connect with you?
I guess the old way is if you're an old guy like me, my personal email address is Dr. Jean-Guy at AOL, Dr. Jean Guy at AOL.com. This is the best way to reach me.
Brother, Jean-Guy, thanks so much. Love you, brother. Everybody out there, don't speak to inform, speak to transform. Talk soon.
Take care. Love you.